All right, guys. So the last 2 days we've talked about our special right triangles, the 45, 45, 90, and the 30, 60, 90. Well, today we're going to combine those together, so you're going to have to be able to pick out which one to use. So let's start off with example 1. It says the length of the diagonal of a square is 8 square roots of 2. Find the length of one side of the square. So first, we probably need to draw our square. Then we need to sketch in a diagonal. So I'm going to sketch that in right here. Now, if we're using a square, remember that means we have 90-degree angles on each side, so that makes our right triangle. But that diagonal bisects the other 90-degree angles and gives us the 45, 45. So if you're talking about a square, you're going to have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Now, it tells us the length of the diagonal is 8 square roots of 2. Now, we need to find the other two sides, which are the same thing, so it makes it pretty easy. So I know that the side that they gave us, the diagonal, is across from the 90-degree angle, so it's the x square roots of 2 side. So this is actually pretty easy. I know that x square roots of 2 equals 8 square roots of 2. I can divide both sides by the square root of 2, and they both cancel out on each side. So I end up with x equals 8. So a pretty straightforward one there. Let's go down to the next one. It says the length of one side of an equilateral triangle is 11. Find the length of the altitude. So I'm going to sketch an equilateral triangle, at least the best I can. And then the altitude is just another word for height. So I'm going to sketch in the height. When you do that, an altitude always hits the base at a right angle. And remember, this is an equilateral triangle, so that means this is 60 degrees. And that altitude cut the other 60-degree angle at the top in half and gives us our 30, 60, 90. So across from the 90-degree angle is our 2x. Across from the 30 down here at the bottom is our x, the short leg, and the 60 is the long leg. That'll be our x square roots of 3. Now be careful not to get that mixed up with the x square roots of 2. It's really easy to mess that up. So let's see. They told us that the length of one side is 11. So I know that this side is 11, and which makes the other ones fairly easy to find as well. If 2x equals 11, I can divide both sides by 2, and I get x is 5.5. So that gives us one of the sides already. We didn't really need that side, though. It really wants us to find the altitude. Well, if x is 11, I know that the altitude is x square roots of 3. So I can just plug in our x value, which we just found, 5.5, and I get that that altitude is 5.5 square roots of 3. So far, those are pretty easy in just plugging in. Let's look at the next one. This one is not too tough, but you have to kind of read the question carefully. So I've got a square, and it says the perimeter of the square is 40. So P equals 40. Well, it's a square, and each side is the same length, so I need to divide that by 4, and I get that each side length is actually just 10. So I'm going to fill that in. It wants me to find the length of the diagonal. So we have our 90-degree angle there. Our 45s are in each corner, which tells me that the sides they gave us are actually equal to the x value, and I need to find the x square roots of 2. So another pretty easy one. If x is 2, then if x is 10, then x square roots of 2 is just going to be 10 square roots of 2. So those three are pretty easy. We actually were able to solve for x pretty quickly. The next few are going to be a little trickier. They're going to be the ones that give us the tougher sides. So it says here, find BG and UG. Now, this is a right triangle. If the sides are congruent, guys, and this is pretty important, this is an isosceles triangle, which means that the two angles are equal as well. They're both 45 degrees. Because 180 minus 90 would leave us 90, and 90 divided by 2 is 45. So I know that I have x square roots of 2 over here, and the two legs are the same. They're both x. So I have a 45, 45, 90. But this time they gave us this side as a whole number, so we have to do a little bit more legwork. I know that x square roots of 2 equals 6. So I can divide both sides by the square root of 2, but then that presents us with our problem that we have a radical in the denominator. So we're going to fix it, again, by multiplying by our clever form of 1, the denominator over the denominator, or the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. 6 times the square root of 2 is just 6 square roots of 2. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 cancels out the square root signs and leaves us with 2. Now, while that technically is x, we want to simplify our answers as much as possible. I can simplify 6 over 2, which is 3, which leaves us with 3 square roots of 2. So that tells me that BG is 3 square roots of 2, and it tells me that UG is 3 square roots of 2. So those can be a little bit tricky. Watch the simplification part when you do this right here, and everything should work out pretty well. Let's go to the next page. I think we've got another one that's pretty similar. This time, it tells us we have a 30-degree angle in a right triangle, which means that's 60 down here. So we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So across from the 90-degree angle is our hypotenuse, which is 2x. Across from 60, the side they actually gave us, that's our x square roots of 3 side. And then across from 30, our short leg is going to be our x value. So we need to find the 2x and the x side since they gave us FL. So similar to the last one, I have x square roots of 3 equals 6, and I divide by the square root of 3. So I have x equals 6 over the square root of 3. Now to fix that one, instead of using the square root of 2 over the square root of 2, I use the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. So 6 times the square root of 3 would be 6 square roots of 3 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. And again, I can simplify. 6 divided by 3 gives me 2 square roots of 3. So what that tells me is that the side that's just x, YL, is just 2 square roots of 3. Now I also need to find, it looks like FY or YF. Well, that's the 2x side, so I take 2 and I multiply it by 2 square roots of 3. 2 times 2 gives me 4, and there's no other roots to multiply square root of 3 by, so it stays the same. So Fy is 4 square roots of 3. So those problems are pretty similar to each other, 4 and 5. 6 is probably the toughest problem we've done so far because it combines everything we found, and now I have to find SG, LU, UG, and SU when I have two of those triangles back to back. So I'm going to start over here with this leftmost triangle because it's the one that has a measurement. So I know if the angle down here is 45, that one's 90, and the other one's 45. Now you have to be careful here because they can kind of get mixed up. So I'm going to go ahead and label the 45 only. That's x, and they gave us the x square roots of 2 side. Probably what would make this a little bit easier is if you drew this triangle separately to the side so we can kind of work it without worrying about the other one. So I'm going to redraw it real quick. It's just real easy to get these confused. That's x, that's x, that's x square roots of 2, but then they also told us that that is 8. So let's find x. So x square roots of 2 equals 8. I divide both sides by the square root of 2, and I get x equals 8 divided by the square root of 2. Now by now we should be pretty comfortable fixing this one. I multiply it by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2, and I get 8 square roots of 2 over 2. But again, I can simplify because 8 divided by 2 is 4, so I get 4 square roots of 2. So that pretty much solved that triangle for us. I know SU is 4 square roots of 2, and I know that LU is 4 square roots of 2 because they're both the x values. Now I can start working the other triangle because I know some stuff about the whole thing. I already know that this is 4 square roots of 2. And I know that this side of the other triangle is 4 square roots of 2, which gives us a side on the 30, 60, 90. So I'm going to draw another triangle over here to the side. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I know that's our 90, this is our 30, and this is our 60 degree. I know across from the 90-degree angle is our 2x. I know across from 60 is our x square roots of 3. And then across from 30 is our x. But we know what x is. It's 4 square roots of 2. So we can use that to find the rest. So let's see. I'm going to find SG first. I think it's the easier of the two. Well, SG is 2 times x. Well, I know that's 2 times x is 4 square roots of 2. I can multiply the 2 times the 4, and I get that SG is 8 square roots of 2. Now I think it's going to be a little bit easier to find UG. So UG is x square roots of 3, but I already know what x is. That's 4 square roots of 2. So I'm going to multiply that by the square root of 3. Now remember, numbers times numbers, roots times roots. I technically have a 1 outside of this square root of 3, but it doesn't really make any difference. All I have there is 4. And then the roots, I multiply what's inside. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I can't simplify 6 because it just breaks down to 2 and 3. It makes UG be 4 square roots of 6. So guys, this can be a little bit confusing. We can totally talk about it in class. So try to remember any questions you have, and we'll talk about it then. Otherwise, good luck.